I welcome you all to this flagship webinar on coal washing in the emerging energy scenario. I have the honor to welcome all the speakers. Mr. Jha, Dr. Srikanth, Mr. Partha Bhattacharya. He's our guide and philosopher associated with the India Energy Forum for a very long time. He has been participating in all our events and guiding us. Mr. Jha is a keynote speaker. The subject is very interesting because we have been talking about coal washing since last more than 2 decades. There was a time when Ministry of Environment had issued a circular making it mandatory for transport of wash coal for the stations which are more than 1,000 kilometers away. Unfortunately, now the circular has been withdrawn also. Coal washing is a very important subject because every time we say that we should transport coal, not the coal and the stones and the mud. So I'm sure today the deliberations and the impressions and the information which will be shared by all the speakers will further strengthen this subject. And even today, there was a press advertisement, press news saying that Coal India has agreed to increase 10 times the wash coal supply to the steel plants, which means that Coal India will go into action to set up more coal washeries. Moving to this, I will now say a few words about the India Energy Forum. India Energy Forum is an NGO established in 2001. It is registered under the Register of Societies. It is a non-profit energy policy aimed at developing of a sustainable and competitive energy sector in India. It is probably the only organization which champions the cause of total energy, all forms of energy ranging from coal, power, thermal, hydro, oil, gas, nuclear, renewables, from the beginning of its functioning. India Energy Forum has completed 20 years and we celebrated our 20th anniversary in the June 2021. The new team under Mr. Sahi took over in August 2020. And we have been organizing, due to the COVID effect, it was decided to organize webinars. And I'm pleased to share with you that this is our on various verticals of energy sector. We have added more verticals, one on the transmission distribution and the regulatory. As I said, our vision is to contribute effectively for development of sustainable energy security in India. To serve this mission and objectives, we are an independent advocate of the industry promoting practical solutions. We work with other organizations. We have signed a MOU with the International Solar Alliance to work jointly for the development of the solar projects. The MOU was signed by Mr. Sahi, President India Energy Forum on behalf of India Energy Forum, and Mr. Ajay Mathur on behalf of International Solar Alliance. The last webinar we had on the nuclear, and it was a very, very successful and well-attended webinar. We had over 95 delegates participating. As nuclear is picking up, a lot of people had interest to know as to what is happening in that area. I'm sure today we will share with these speakers as to how coal washing capacity has to increase in India, and time has to come when only washed coal should be supplied. I once again have the privilege of welcoming Shri Anil Kumar Jha, former Chairman, Coal India and Chairman, Jindal Power Limited, Mr. Partha Bhattacharya, former CMD Coal India, under whose guidance and tenure there was a transformation of Coal India Limited. And Coal India came up very nicely to serve the power sector. With these words, I again welcome you all to this flagship webinar and request Mr. Gautam to introduce the event of the day. Mr. Gautam, please.
Thank you, Mr. Bambani, and good morning to you all. It is indeed a great pleasure to welcome you all to this India Energy Forum webinar on a very important topic which has been discussed for the last 30 years very seriously, of coal washing in the emerging energy scenario. We are very fortunate to have very distinguished and learned panel of very eminent speakers who will express their views and guide us for the future course of action for coal quality improvement. World is facing an extremely difficult task of balancing the two most important aspects: how to reduce emissions, keep climate change in check, and also meet the world energy needs. Renewable energy capacity is being built very, very fast, but then that sector also has facing its own problems. Efforts are being made to establish new energy sources like hydrogen, etc., for the future needs, and all efforts are being made to keep the temperature rise within the targeted limit of 1.5 degrees, which looks to be a very difficult task, and chances are that we might not be in a position to succeed. Due to the war between Ukraine and Russia, the world is facing a very serious energy crisis, a period of great anxiety and uncertainty. The cost of fuel is touching very high marks. Some relief came when some crude did fall below $100, but the prices of natural gas are touching the sky. Absolutely unprecedented is the price. And so is also the prices of coal are also quite high. In this situation, the dependence on coal in India, having a very high energy import bill, is increasing even more. Efforts are being made to increase coal production very fast. Even some developed countries like UK and USA are talking of increased coal use. India's per capita consumption today is very low, but our total emission contribution is very high. We are the third largest contributor to the emissions in the world. India being a big net importer of energy, 80% of oil and more than 50% of gas, so we have a very precarious situation. In the current scenario, to take care of the rising need of this large developing country, the coal production will have to increase. Ministry of Coal is making serious efforts. In the last quarter, April to June, Coal India production has gone up by 29%. From 124 million tons, it has nearly touched 160 million tons. And as the group was discussing, I do not know what percentage of stone is there in this production. Anyway, that's on the lighter side. And also the captive block holders as well as the commercial block holders have also given a very, very high rise production. Their production has gone up by 80%. And they have reached nearly 24 million tons. And they are likely to attain their target of 30 million tons, which is for the next quarter. So this is how the production is now increasing. The only course of action for us in this scenario, when the production has to increase and is increasing, is to make the use of coal as green as possible for taking some important policy decisions and right action in the direction of reducing the carbon footprint of coal combustion. Pre-coal combustion is a very important stage. This is where we should look after very clearly, because this is the fall within the domain of the coal producers. We have to ensure to improve the quality of coal as much as possible before the coal is combusted. At the time of mining coal, and further improving the quality by washing of coal. Using washed coal for coal combustion has been accepted to improve the combustion efficiency, improve power plant economy, and thus help the reduction of carbon footprint of the power plant all over the world. Many power stations in India, though, continue to use raw coal of as percentage of over 45%. All over the world, power coal being produced is washed before combustion. We are very unique country in that respect, that we are not making arrangements to wash our coal, even when our coal, which has a very high ash content, requires washing the most. We keep debating and keep changing our policies on coal washing to improve coal quality before combustion. All the people here are fully aware of the history, but it is important to make my point. I would like to go back a little bit into the historical background. Only Coal India had coal washing plants which were taken over, as we were discussing, Mr. Shai said, were taken over from Hindustan Steel. They were mostly washing coking coal for the steel plants. One study sponsored by ADB in the mid-90s was made by using washed coal in Satpura Power Station, which brought out that there are a lot of economic and other benefits of washed coal is used of improved quality. The report was well accepted at that particular point in time. Coal India floated tenders of 4 washeries of 20 million tons capacity. LOIs were issued to Mr. Robert and Schaefer. Discussion on washed coal price was done with power sector, being the consumer of the washed coal. No consensus was reached, and therefore no progress was made. Coal India installed a non-coking coal washery at Pipavav of 6 million tons. Washed coal is being used in Dadri Power Station of NTPC, and it is still being used. In the year 2000, Ministry of Environment and Forest issued a notification to use coal less than 34% in power plants beyond 1,000 kilometers away from the coal source, and plants situated in urban and polluted areas and ecologically fragile areas. No serious efforts were made to wash the coal to comply with the notification. Issue came up, who should wash the coal supplier or the coal consumer? However, after a long debate, generally it was agreed that the coal supplier should do it. Without seriously assessing the compliance of the MOEF notification, which was hardly less than even 25%, the notification was modified that all the power plants should now beyond 75 kilometers from the source should use coal less than 34%, and even subsequently, this was later changed to 500 kilometers. In the meantime, washeries by Coal India, by consumers and third parties started coming up. Large number of washeries were installed by private sector. This is one important aspect which I want to bring to the notice. Large capacity was installed by the private washers. A report was made in 2013 which gives the following picture. The total installed coal washing capacity at that time in the country was 121 million tons. Coal India, 31.37 million tons, out of which coking coal was 20 million tons and non-coking was 11 million tons. Private sector washery capacity at that time was 90 million tons. This capacity came at the investment of 1,800 crores, taking an average figure of 20 crores per million ton of installation. During this period, capacity utilization never went above 60%, even though the notification was very much in force at that particular point in time. During that period, capacity utilization, Planning Commission took cognizance of this subject and even issued a directive to ministries that the capacity utilization of the power sector, of the private sector washeries should be improved. I now give you a performance of the coal washeries in India for the past 3 years. In the year 2018-19, the total washing capacity of of non-coking coal was 110 million tons. Coal India, 9 million tons. Private sector, 100 million tons. It went up from 90 million tons to 101 million tons in a span of 7-8 years. Now the picture is that at that in 2018-19, Coal India raw coal feed to the washery was 6.7 million tons. Washed coal 67 million tons, yield was 97%, capacity utilization 76.6%. Private sector, 52 million tons raw coal only was fed, 41 was the washed coal at a yield of 78.64%, and capacity utilization was 52% only. Total was 59, washed coal 47 million tons, yield 78, and the overall utilization was 54.5 million tons. In the year 2019 and 20, Coal India, 6.7 million tons, raw coal, washed coal 6.6, yield was 97%, capacity utilization 76. Private sector, 45 million tons, 41 was washed coal, yield was 80%, capacity utilization 45. From 52, it came down to 45 in the next year. The total was 52 million tons was fed, 48 million tons was washed coal, yield 80%, and overall utilization was 50%. MOEF issued a directive on 21st May 2020 to withdraw the stipulation of use of coal for less than 34%, and power plant were free to use raw coal without any restriction of as percentage in coal. Now, after this notification, the performance given by Coal Controller's report if the year 2020 is Coal India, raw coal fed from 6.7 million tons came down to 5.52. Washed coal was 5 million tons. Yield was 99%, capacity utilization 61%. Private sector, as against the earlier 50 million tons, the raw coal fed was only 24 million tons. Washed coal was 19 million tons. Yield was 73, capacity utilization only 24%. Total 29.63 million tons was the raw coal, washed coal was 24.7 million tons, 83 was the yield, and 27.1% was the overall capacity utilization. This capacity utilization by the private sector was installed at a cost of 2,000 crores. Mr. Bambani said that how we to increase, the capacity is already there. Rather, the people, private sector people who invested into the washery really don't know whether to sit or to laugh, because they have spent the money, the washeries are there, but there is no coal to wash. So we will know the position of the performance for the year 21-22 when this coal controller report is published. Why Indian coal is not washed when this high coal needs, high ash coal needs coal washing the most in the world? The whole world has better quality of coal than us, but then still washes 100% of its coal. The coal quality of combustion, everybody agrees that the coal quality before consumption must be improved, but our performance still remains so poor. The price of fuel, this is one reason which I feel could be a reason. The price of fuel, coal is passed through in the power tariff. If washed coal is purchased, its price is passed through. But if the consumer washes coal, after purchase of the coal, the cost is not a pass-through. The washing cost goes towards the power tariff. Is that the reason why the power sector is not willing? I do not know, but this is one aspect. The experts during their presentation will give us the insight as to what is the future course of action when it is already agreed that the coal quality must be improved, particularly of Indian coal, as to what action can we take to improve the coal quality, and that too it has to be done through washing. There one more issue was there of disposal of rejects. In the beginning, it was very difficult as to the owner of the rejects was the person who supplied the coal, that is the power plants. But it was lying within the washery. This coal rejects could not be officially disposed of. The power plants were not interested to discuss anything about this, and they were piling up in the yards of the washery. However, after 20 years, on 27th May 2021, the government has given a directive now as to how to dispose of rejects, though it's quite a complicated thing, but at least something has come. To my mind, Ministry of Coal, Ministry of Power, and Niti Aayog should sit down and make a policy which is to reach a consensus to work out some ways and means to make sure that the coal washing is done and we make the coal in the real sense at least a bit greener. So this is all I have to say at this point. We will listen more from the experts. Now may I request Mr. U. Kumar to please give the presentation of the theme and as well as also give the introduction of the speakers. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Gautam. Good morning to all of you. In fact, whatever is to be given as the introduction subject, Mr. Gautam has already done it. There are a few points, like Mr. Sahi said, that the debate on washing started in 70s. In fact, you could go back almost 15 years when the Industrial Policy Resolution was taken in 1955, and coal was identified as the main body or main substance on energy policy will be based. Then at that time itself, the debate started. And as we do generally, we keep on debating things till the cow comes back home. Because action converted into action only in 1986. The Government of India gave a mandate to National Productivity Council to conduct a real-life study on use of forced coal. And as Mr. Gautam said, it was conducted at Satpura Power Station. The conclusions were very, very strong. And on all issues, like the auxiliary power support, fuel consumption, saving in a freight cost, on all fronts, washing proved to be very, very advantageous. And in fact, they went to the extent that even if there is no freight advantage, even then the washing of coal would be desirable. Now, since then, the dilemma has continued. Wash or not wash. After 1986, after the experiment was successful, even then we continued to debate. It was only in 2001 that the direction came, as Mr. Gautam said, that power stations located at 1,000 kilometers or else located in critically polluted areas and urban areas have to use minus 34% ash. I think that the result of this directive was on the positive side. But the private sector got interested in construction of washeries only after this. And as Mr. Gautam said, today 21 million tons capacity was created. And it was all falling in the right lines. Till in 2014, the directive came to reduce the cutoff distance to 750 kilometers. And what was the time given? I mean, for this complying with this direction, we needed another 150 million tons of washing capacity. The time given was for 2 months to create this capacity. And it became very obvious that whoever gave the mandate or whoever was instrumental in giving this mandate was not serious at all about the mandate being complied with. In the same circular, he said that after 2016, the cutoff distance would reduce to 500 kilometers. Little realized that within this period, short period of time, even the washability studies could not be carried out, which is an essential feature of design of washeries. This resulted in some fly-by-night operators also coming in. I remember a case when I would not need the power board, but they issued a tender notice, and one party had submitted the technology that there will be 4 steel boxes. Coal will come from one box to other, from second box to third box to fourth box, and it will get washed in the sense that the water will come together with flushing of coal. I mean, and that technology was accepted by the power group. So I mean, they didn't have the knowledge. They didn't even try to acquire the knowledge. Now, this led to some evil practices. And though the practitioners of wrong things were very limited, but the entire coal sector, entire coal washing got a bad name. And I could hear the rumor or could hear the rumbling in Ministry of Coal, in Ministry of MOEF, that this coal washing, the hogwash, nothing will achieve that. And probably the seeds for withdrawal of the mandate were in at that time. It's very unfortunate that the mandate has been withdrawn. But then when the justification which was given for the mandate being withdrawn, that is very interesting. The note prepared in consultation with Ministry of Coal, Ministry of Power, and Niti Aayog, NMOEF said that to the overall scheme, in the overall scheme of coal mine washery and power plants, extent of ash content in the mine coal remains the same. I mean, even ordinary meaning cannot be derived out of this language. But this was given as the justification for withdrawal of the mandate. The Power Ministry said process of washing is cumbersome and costly, and calorific value of coal, and it does not reduce the ash content, and it, on the other hand, reduces the calorific value of coal. It's a totally unscientific statement, totally wrong statement, but this has been part of the decision-making process. Now, the Coal Ministry went a step further, and they themselves admitted that washing has not proved to be useful in improving the quality. Now, see, coal is a product of nature. I mean, whatever nature has given, we have to mine it. Before the proceedings started, and there were some adverse remarks about stone getting mixed with coal. Probably people don't realize that stone is a part of the coal seam formation, and you can separate it only by physical action. It cannot be separated during mining, and that's why the concept of washing came. Indian coal is known to be the dirtiest in the world, and yet everybody cleans the coal, we don't. And we keep on debating and debating, and until we have reached the situation like this. So, I mean, mistakes have been committed, mistakes are being committed. But when the theme for the webinar was decided, that in the emerging scenario, I mean, till the other day, everyone was making forecast as to when coal will die. Even we made a commitment by 2070, it will be net carbon zero. But you know, now, as a result of this impact of Ukraine-Russia war, every country is out to increase the coal production. Even those who have committed 2060 and 2050, even they are going to increase the production. So the situation has totally changed, and a serious look will have to be given to the withdrawal of the mandate, I think, which is, in my opinion, totally unscientific, without any basis. And I mean, just for withdrawing it, things have been said which are totally not correct, which really doesn't exist on the ground. This, of course, may be my personal opinion, and that's why we will be hearing from very learned authors. Professor Sahi's contribution will be there. That will be setting the tone. And we have got Mr. Mrig, a very dear friend. We have conducted our journey for almost 50 years together. He was one who took the lead in setting up the washeries in the first and the private sector. And excellent work was done. Unfortunately, probably even that washery has become idle. So, having said this, I think I'll request Mr. Malik, the Vice President of Indian Energy Forum, and he was former chairman of Bharat Coking Coal, Southeastern Coalfields, and he's now heading as Bayudanana Power Limited as chairman. I would request him to kindly share his thoughts on this very important issue. And since he has been, his involvement has been very direct and very deep, but we would like to get great attention. So thank you, Mr. Malik. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. And I request Mr. Malik to kindly share his thoughts.
Namaskar. Namaskar, everybody. 1997, after 2 years of retirement, I had nothing to do with the director. I resigned from the private sector where I was working. But some of my friends, Captain Sidhu Sutter, came. We decided to do something. Nobody in coal washing at that time. Nobody. Why not we start? After all, wash coal needed its effect. People writing, talking. The number of articles coming in magazine, papers. So we decided to go for it straight. And we made a company, Aryan Coal Beneficiation, applied for land, Southeastern Coalfield. We got 10-acre plot of land in 98. After completing formalities, we started the construction. In 99, first initial washing started functioning. You supply the first orders are not from power plant at all. It's from the cement sector. We were crying for clean coal, good coal, clean coal. And they wanted to maintain the quality of cement. They wanted some uniform quality of coal. Once we give them, the first trial order was from ACC. It's difficult to believe we got an order from ACC of 1 million ton straight. They're so happy with quality. We want to wash coal. Forget about price. You can't afford this muck going in and not able to control the quality of cement. That's how our company came. And we started washing non-coking coal from Gabriel, the area. Due course of time, the requirements are going very fast. Instead of talking to power plants, coming to agreements, coming to it's a long process. Why not we do something ourselves? We expanded the washery. In the meantime, we expanded the washery. There was a tender with the Punjab Electricity Board, the washing of raw coal. We got that order. We started washing of coal for Punjab Electricity Board from the Gabriel area. And this whole thing became very successful. Nobody else at that time in the washing of non-coal at all. Nobody was there. No competition at all. And rejects, we're disposing it to our friends, coal traders. We pick it up and take it where they want. We had problems. As the quantity increased, a lot of problems. Nobody would dispose this large quantity to coal traders. First washery design was basically simple rotary breakers, picking belt, etc. Later on, we added barrel washers and drum washers. I tell you, barrel washers and drum washers may be very rough, but non-coking coal, for the purpose that you're using, they became very, very successful. Cheap, easy to run, easy to maintain, and to our requirement, they're meeting. We wanted this particular quality of coal, roughly, there's no major abrasions and major failures. Mostly it was all right. I think it worked. And we were committing a particular yield, depending on the price of coal. But that also, more or less, could meet. We were supplying to cement plants. Next was I told you Punjab Electricity Board. Punjab Electricity Board gave it a first trial order. Later on, they're so happy with it. Deepka gave it too far from road, taking all the muck all the way to down such long distance, not helpful. Wash coal for them was a real need. It was a real success story in all respects. Cost, quality, everything. The transporting muck all the way from Devka Gevra to Ropar is a big distance, in more than 1,000 kilometers. I think 1,400 kilometers, very large distance. Later on, when I did this technology of barrel washers and drum washers, nobody believed it would work. Everybody wanted jigs. We went for jigs later on. But barrel washers and drum washers proved to be success. Really success. Very simple. Originally, we 1 or 2 barrel washers. We did import from UK. Later on, we started manufacturing ourselves in our own workshop. We manufacture the barrel washers ourselves. Okay, copying the other manufacturers. Coal washing is required by everybody. Whether there's a cement plant or a power plant, they need consistent quality of coal. Whosoever uses consistent quality of coal will not like to go back to the complete control of a generation, running of our plant, maintenance of pressure, temperature, everything. You can maintain the uniform quality of clean coal, the uniform operation of power plant. And running a power plant, sitting in Kastoria, owned by own power plant. Running power plant with uniform quality of feed, really real story. How did we go? How we went for coal washing? Later on, we expanded. We started because the country needed this. Industry needed wash coal. And there was vacuum. We just vented the vacuum. Initially, there was some little problem. Later on, there also got banks saw that we were able to pay back the loan. The first loan we paid back in 3 years instead of 8 years. This is how things worked. My purpose of telling this small story is the coal washing, when we started, we were initially the first one to start in non-coking coal. But proved to be good story, good experience. Now, the necessity of large power plant, they want uniform quality of coal. Anybody who wants uniform quality of coal will have. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think I'll very pleasant duty. I'll requesting Mr. Sahi, our chairman, president of IEF, to share his thoughts. And, all the aspects of energy management, they are so close to him, so dear to him. And his thought process is very so clear that you always like to hear him. You always derive benefit out of it. So, Mr. Shahi, thank you very much for please coming in.
Thank you, Mr. Kumar. I think it's nice listening to you because we have some common point insofar as coal washery is concerned.
That's right, yeah.
And this is such an important subject for me that when we decided that we will have an exclusive discussion on coal washing, and when Gautam mentioned this, I was so happy because my own association with this subject is quite old. In fact, almost from the beginning of my career, not in the power sector, but in the steel industry. Because for the steel industry, washed coal, coking coal is so important. So that is way back in almost 71, I was associated with the Hindustan Steel. Of course, I joined Hindustan Steel in 67. But this issue of association with coal washery is as old as maybe 71, 72 when the whole coal industry was nationalized. And BCCL along with the coal washery became subsidiary of steel industry, Hindustan Steel at that time, which later on became SAIL Authority of India, Steel Authority of India Limited. And I remember almost couple of months I spent in all the 3 washeries, which were washing coal and supplying it to the steel industry. And the middlings, they used to call it middlings. The middlings were being used for the Chandrapura power station from Dugda. So they're as old as that. And subsequently, again, we got into this because when I was General Manager of Dadri project and Mr. Chaudhary was CCL CMD, that's the time you mentioned just now that Dadri is being supplied with Coal India washed coal. And I was behind that because I insisted that Dadri will use washed coal. So we had marathon meetings with Mr. Chaudhary. And despite all the problems which we were mentioning about price, etc., we could settle the matter, and that NTPC for the first time in the Dadri project, they agreed with Coal India, and that's how Dadri project is using the washed coal. And then again, when I was BSS chairman, there is the time Robert and Stafford name was mentioned, and I was certain that Coal India is not serious, nor the Ministry of Coal is serious. These are very serious objectionable statements are making, but that was my own conclusion that day, and which I mentioned to the then Additional Secretary Coal that I'm sure I don't think your discussion will take us anywhere. I will do my own washery. And we decided to do our own washery for BSS. I went to USA, got hold of our particular technology, the people, the experts. And unlike what Coal India has been claiming that they will wash the coal to 34% as content, I got the washery which washes it to 30%. So I was surprised when Coal India were talking those days 34%. Then why is it that they're talking of 34%? And 30% washed coal ash with almost 79-80% of yield, maybe 80% plus of yield. So that is how we started. So, and then lo and behold, when I retired from I did try as power secretary. I saw that there were no takers in the coal ministry to seriously pursue this matter, nor in Coal India. And the entire 5 years we kept trying, why should we not implement whatever is there? I entirely agree with Mr. Kumar when he says that when a circular is issued and the time given is 1 year or months or 2 years, but that is all right. But okay, you don't implement in 1 year. Can you implement in 3 years? That cannot be a reason not to do it at all. I can understand that an unreasonable circular has been issued with timeline. But then that cannot be the basis for any coal producer to say that since the timeline given is unworkable. Always we do a timeline. We do this in 3 years, we do this in 4 years, but we do it in more number of years. Hydro project we do in more number of years. Coal projects we do in more number of years. How many coal projects we are able to do, or how many hydro projects we are able to do in the time frame that is given in the beginning. So that cannot be a very solid reason not to be doing it at all. I'm doing it so casually that our performance has been very poor in this regard. So that happened. The circular was issued, not implemented. And as I said that later on, in spite of my trying my best in the power ministry with coal ministry and others, we found that this is not being taken as seriously as it should be taken. After I left the government, again, I got associated with this coal washery in case of Jindal. Jindal, as like Mr. Jha is here now, he has joined as chairman of Jindal Power. And that does use a coal washery. They get the coal and wash it and use the coal reject from there for the other power station, which needs higher ash content and can do with the middlings or the coal rejects. So I think the association has been so nostalgic that I feel really very seriously sort of disappointed about what is happening. For India, we have made this point in other seminars. For India, coal is most important. You see the fate of Indian energy profile when we talk of petroleum. And our dependence on petroleum for import is to the extent of more than 85%. And see the economic and financial consequences of this extraordinary reliance on import. And to that extent, we have made this point that this is our most important energy resource, constituting more than 60% of energy basket of India. And therefore, we have to pursue this. At the highest level, at all levels in our seminars, we have said there is no going away from coal at least till 2060-70. Prime Minister made this point that till 2070, we will bring this net zero And that net zero does not mean no coal. So it's so important for us. But this is such an important resource yet. On this vital issue of quality of coal, both the user side as well as the supplier side, we have been very casual, I must say. Again, when 2009 or 10, Mr. Chatterjee was the environment secretary, I met him. I was not in government, persuaded him. He took it seriously. We had a national workshop. In that national workshop, it was consensus was that yes, something should be done. A committee was set up. I chaired that committee. I am happy Partha is here. He was a member in that committee. Sachdeva is no more. I think he had a DNA for coal washing. I mean, he was so emphatic about the preparation of coal and coal washing. So three of us, we worked on this for a few months, and we came out with a draft which was finally accepted by the Ministry of Environment, the government. And there, a very historic change we made, that washed coal is not only the responsibility of consumer, it is the responsibility, obligation of supplier. And that is how it should have been right from the beginning. A good quality of product has to come to the market. Whose responsibility it is? Is it the responsibility of consumer? So therefore, it was a flawed type of circular earlier, and it continued as a flawed circular, that we are trying to put the responsibility of quality of supply to the consumer rather than to the supplier. In this meeting, we did that. In fact, I was insisting that it should be the responsibility only of the supplier, but all our members, they said that no, let's have the both, consumer as well as supplier. So we made it. What was made was not only 1,000 kilometers, but 500 kilometers. We worked out the economics. Economics works out. Power people must accept it. But then when the finally circular was issued, now we have heard from all of you that this circular itself has been withdrawn. I would say that why circular or no circular? Do we need a circular for a supplier to supply good quality product? We don't need. Coal India is our biggest supplier of coal to the extent of, I must say, maybe 90%, maybe a little more than 90%. They should supply good quality coal. We don't need a circular. If we have a problem about price, we have been mentioning year after year that why don't we have a regulator who could fix the price? What is the problem? Whole power sector is working on regulator. Many times distribution companies are not happy about pricing. Many times the generators are not happy about a price, but somehow the matter is resolved. That has become the way of sort of regulating these matters in all sectors. We have regulators in various sectors. And coal supply with quality, we must recognize it should be. Definitely, I don't give clean check. I mean, just now what has been talked, I entirely agree that consumers have also been not responsible, because when this was being withdrawn, it had not been withdrawn. Many people talked to me. I talked to Coal India people. I talked to NTPC also. I saw both. Both were happy that this circular is withdrawn. So therefore, I will equally put the blame on power industry as well. But having said that, I must say that initiative must be with the coal supplier. I mean, the type of thing, even now when I visit, and I'm quite active visiting power plants in the country, public sector power plants and private sector power plants, I must tell you, totally disappointed about the coal supply. Same issue continues. What we talked in 30 years ago, stone, muck, all sorts of things coming in the coal, I mean, it continues to. Oversized coal coming. That's what is happening to the coal supply that is going on in the power industry. Coking coal is a different issue. Coking coal, if we don't have, BCCL is not having, then of course, coking coal, mostly people are depending on imported coal. The coal has become a critical issue, not only for India, it is a critical issue for the whole world. I think some of us should sit together. India Energy Forum should take a lead. I would definitely do something on this. Even now, we can write a very comprehensive request to the government to reconsider the matter. But before that, we should have a dialogue with the Coal India people. That are they really serious about pursuing this matter? and it should go along with the regulator. Price fixed should be acceptable to the power sector. There should be no doubt about it. If the cost is there, the cost has to be passed through. If we leave it to the power people that they will not get the price, as was mentioned just now, that Gautam mentioned that point, that one of the problems was that if you wash coal on your own, and therefore the private washeries have got into problem, then that cost will not be passed through. But that was a wrong thing. But then, having said that again, if there are private washeries, there has to be a mechanism of fixing the price, because the entire power sector is a price fixation mechanism through regulatory mechanism. Because finally, distribution companies have to pass on the burden of tariff to the consumers. So therefore, it is a doable thing. All of us should sit and work out what can be done, taking the last circular which has been withdrawn as a basis. If it requires any modification, that modification should be done. If it requires a reinforcement that the cost of this should be a pass-through, and that should be done through a regulatory mechanism. If coal regulator is not there, power regulator can do that job, and definitely it is possible. So I am 100% sure that let's listen to all the experts. Today we have a chairman of the Jindal Power, who was himself the chairman of Coal India, so therefore he will see the problem on both sides. Not that others have not seen. I am very happy Mr. U. Kumar was with us on doing the first coal washery that we did for BSES. So he is equally, concerned about washeries and washed coal. So I think this seminar, this discussion should definitely lead to certain conclusions, which should be action-oriented conclusions. And I can assure you that from India Energy Forum, we can definitely initiate the process of discussion with the Niti Aayog, Power Ministry, Coal Ministry again, and see that if these obligations of supply and obligations of consumption, they are not again reinforced, I don't see that with the crisis of coal supply and coal inadequacy in terms of quantity, there would be enough regard and enough emphasis on maintaining quality of coal as it is. The story has gone on for decades, and it will go on for future decades also. I think these obligations has to be done. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much for giving a right approach to the problem. I think the Indian Energy Forum should be able to contribute effectively in the matter. Now we have got our keynote speaker, Shri Anil Kumar Jha, former Chairman Coal India, currently Chairman of Jindal Power. I have the privilege of introducing him. Mining graduate from School of Mines, and he has done his postgraduate studies again from Indian School of Mines. He joined Coal India immediately after graduation, and he has contributed a great deal to CMPDI. And then he came to production company, CCL. He has held many important assignments and senior positions in CCL, including the General Manager of Rada area. He had served 14 years in CMPDI, and he has expertise. He has built expertise in planning of open cast and underground coal mines. He has over 3 decades experience in mine planning, production, management, supervision, direction, and control of underground as well as open cast mines. For a while, he worked as Director P&P in MOIL, but he was the nominated owner and head of production planning, projects, quality control, and mine safety divisions. Other departments, including personnel and industrial relations, were also being looked after by Mr. Jha. Mr. Jha has won several awards. He has been the recipient of Best Chief Executive Award conferred by GeoMineTech for outstanding performance of MCL during his tenure as CMD in 2017-18. He presented many technical papers in national and international seminars and workshops. He has been past president of MGMI, and of course, he has written that he doesn't hold any shares of Coal India Limited, which is, of course, not very important now, but probably when he was the chairman. And that's important. Now, having seen from this that both worked in private sector, public sector, worked on coal production, coal washing. And probably what Mr. Gautam said about the Coal India's performance on washing of power grade coal. And the figures were given only for Pipavav. You see, we should know that Coal India was the pioneer, even in introducing concept of washing for power grade coal. It set up a Gidi washery way back in late 50s, early 60s, only for washing power grade coal. So Mr. Jha has looked after that also. So Mr. Jha, would like to hear from you. You have already given a thought to the matter, you have already practiced it, and it will be very enlightening for all of us to get your feedback from there. Thank you, Mr.
Jha. Thank you very much, sir, for giving me a brief introduction. A very pleasant good morning to all my seniors, my colleagues, and my friends who are attending this webinar. First of all, at the outset, I would like to congratulate and compliment India Energy Forum for keeping us abreast about the latest development in the energy sector in general and coal sector in particular through publication of daily newsletter. So I get to know what is happening in the world through that newsletter published by India Energy Forum. So today's seminar is coal washing in emerging energy scenario. So I understand that we are limited to the coal washing as far as thermal grade coal is concerned. As far as coking coal is concerned, absolutely there is no argument. We must wash all coking coal so that our import implications would be as minimum as possible. Coking coal must be washed. But as far as thermal coal is concerned, it has taken in the industry as a mixed reactions. We have already heard Mr. Gautam, Mr. Kumar, and Sahi Sahab, who have exhaustively illustrated about the coal scenario and about the washing scenario. I will restrict myself to only few aspects. Sir, I am very clear in my mind that a technology or a process to succeed, it must conform to two things. Firstly, either there should be a statutory obligation or it should be economically viable. So in case of coal washery, in case of coal washing, we have already seen that Ministry of Environment and Forest, which has given a stipulation that only 34% or less as coal should be transported for more than 1,000 kilometers, which was subsequently reduced to 750 kilometers, which was subsequently reduced to 500 kilometers, and which was subsequently abolished. That any distance coal can travel, and there is no stipulation about the as percentage. So I think there is no statutory compulsion that one must wash coal. So second aspect is left with the economics of washing coal. Sir, there is absolutely nothing to think that washing of coal is not a good idea. It is an exceptionally good idea. Washed coal gives a very consistent performance of boiler. Efficiency increases, and there is a very little maintenance if consistent quality coal is fed into the thermal power plant. Another aspect is whether thermal power plant is giving any economic returns by way of using washed coal or not. When I was CMD of Mahanadi Coalfields Limited, we were under extreme pressure to commission 4 washery of 10 million ton capacity each. Subsequently, when I became chairman of Coal India, at that time also there was huge pressure. But one fine morning, we have heard that washing may not be needed, and we have scrapped to tender for 10 million ton capacity of Mahanadi Coalfields Limited. So I think statutorily, it is not that important that washed coal should be used. So use of washed coal must give us some economic return. Presently, as far as my knowledge goes, using washed coal is not cheap in comparison to raw coal. I would definitely like to hear our experts, but until and unless washed coal gives some better economic returns, I don't think consumer is going to use the washed coal for other considerations. I totally agree with Sahi Saab when he says that it is the responsibility of the supplier to supply quality product. I totally agree with you, sir. But there should be consumers also to agree to accept that quality product. If they are not agreeing for that quality product, if they agree for second grade product, there is no fun supplying only quality product. Sir, you have seen both the aspects. You have seen the power sector, you have seen the coal sector, you have seen the steel sector also. So I am very clear in my mind that as far as the steel sector is concerned, we need more of coal washing for coking coal. But as far as power sector is concerned, whether thermal coal should be washed or not, that should be left to the consumer, that whether they want to use washed coal or not. As far as Jindal Power is concerned, we are using washed coal because we are finding that use of washed coal is very beneficial as far as our plant is concerned. It improves our PLF, it improves our maintenance. In all aspects, washed coal is always good. But then there are consumers who are not interested in procuring washed coal. Sir, Washery could have seen better light had there been some more positive response from the consumers. That positive response also we didn't receive. So Coal India alone cannot take this until and unless there is a buyer, until and unless there is a consumer. There is no fun setting up washeries. We have already commissioned around 20 million ton washery in Mahanadi Coalfields Limited, but it is still not seeing the light of the day because consumers are not coming forward. So I think a holistic view needs to be taken. And as far as environmental considerations are concerned, sir, still there is no conclusive study that use of washed coal reduces the environmental load. Yes, when we use washed coal in thermal power plant, environmental load is definitely reduced. But the rejects and fines which are left at the washery, and if their end use is not monitored, they might contribute to more load on the environmental considerations. So we will have to be very, very serious in use of washed coal as well as use of rejects. Sir, we have very distinguished speaker in the form of Mr. Partho Bhattacharya, who is my mentor also, and other distinguished speaker. I'm also very much interested in listening to them. But in a nutshell, I would like to say two things very categorically. Firstly, if a technology or process has to succeed, there must be a statutory compulsion or there must be economic or technological improvement. In case of washed coal, all statutory consideration has been removed. So we will have to consider that use of washed coal must fetch me some economic return over the raw coal. So I would like to hear our expert, Dr. R. Srikanth is here. He will throw more light on it. And then a holistic view is to be taken that whether we should go for washed coal or not. The issue is lingering for long. As Sai Saab has very correctly said, in last 3-4 decades, we are debating on this. And until and unless a holistic view is taken, we will continue to debate for another 2-3 decades. So now a time has come that consumer and supplier, they must sit together along with the environmental considerations people and take a holistic view that whether washing is needed or not needed. In my view, I am very clear that washing should be needed and consumers, if it is required, must pay something extra to take care of the consistent quality of the coal. I once again thank my India Energy Forum for giving me an opportunity to speak in front of such a wise people under whom I have learned. But sir, as you were very correctly saying that I have seen both the facets of the private sector and the public sector. Sir, as far as Coal India is concerned, out of context, I am telling you, only one single entity is not in a position to take the entire load of the country. Coal India needs some help. And I am very happy that Government of India is taking positive steps. Now commercial mining is coming into the forefront. In 2021, private and commercial and captive miners produced 85 million tons. In 22-23, the target is 138 million tons. If that materializes, the scarcity of coal which we are seeing now, it may not be of that serious nature. And sir, another thing is, first of all, we need quantity. Once entire quantity is provided, then and then only we can think of quality. If a person is hungry, first of all, he will like to go for bread. Then only he will like to go for butter. So country is passing through a state where there is still some scarcity of coal. When that scarcity is met, then people will definitely go for quality product. And that quality product can be provided consumers are willing to take it. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Jha. Thank you for asserting your viewpoint very strongly. We may agree with you, we may disagree with you, but yes, you have had a very effective say. You rightly mentioned about rejects. I think Mr. Gautam also referred to it. That the circular on utilization of rejects itself is very faulty. I mean, that is a sort of incentive towards mixing good coal with rejects, so that rejects become sellable. I think that was a totally destructive circular. Anyway, you could examine it. So now I call upon Mr. P.S. Bhattacharya. I don't think he needs any introduction, particularly to Indian Energy Forum members. But since the formality has got to be involved, and we have got to follow. I mean, Partha is a combination of many things. He's an MSc in physics. He's a accountant by education as well by training. He became a general manager of finance in Coal India subsidiary, and ultimately he headed the organization with such distinction that he brought Coal India to international forum, and Coal India got recognized as one of the finest organizations in the world. The entire credit for that goes to Sri Partha Bhattacharya. I would only like to mention the awards that he has received. I mean, got the coveted Scope Gold Trophy Award for excellence and outstanding contribution to the public sector management in the institutional category of 2007-2008 from Prime Minister. Was conferred the CEO with HR Orientation Award by Honorable Prime Minister of Bhutan during World HRD Congress in February 2010. On May 2010, he was awarded the CII President's Award, Indian Institute of Social Welfare and Business Management, Premier Management Institute of Kolkata, conferred Distinguished Management Fellowship Award to Mr. Bhattacharya. On the same day, the Jury and Council of Board of Members of Employer Branding Institute, CMO Asia, Singapore, conferred on him the CEO HR Orientation Award in Singapore. In 2010, was conferred the Distinguished Fellowship Award by Institute of Directors, a premier institution of directors focusing on management issues. Recently, CSIR has nominated Mr. Bhattacharya as the chairman of the Research Council of Central Institute of Mining and Fuel Research Institute, Dhanbad. On 13 December 2010, CII was conferred with 2 India Pride Awards 2010, the Best Energy Sector Company and CSR Public Institute Environment Protection and Conservation Awards by the Honorable Finance Minister of India. So I think the range of awards that would give you some signal about his overall achievements and his multifaceted contribution to the cause of energy, not only coal, but energy as a whole in India. So, Mr. Bhattacharya, I always have called Partho, despite I'm misspelling his wrong. I'm misspelling his name wrong, but he has forgiven me for it. So, Partho, you are welcome, and people are looking forward to hearing from you.
Thank you so much, sir, for that very generous kind of an introduction. I don't think I deserve all that, but you have taken time to do that introduction. So nice of you, sir. I mean, first of all, I echo what Mr. Anil Jha has said, that this India Energy Forum, I think, keeps us. This is the only forum that helps us in keeping us ourselves updated on all facets of energy, and the fact that you deal with energy issues across the various energy verticals, that really makes it a very comprehensive think tank for the energy sector. And I am delighted, sir, and feel honored to be invited to speak on this occasion. I completely agree with what Mr. Shahi said when he said that it is the responsibility of the coal producer to supply the quality of coal for which he is getting paid. And I don't think that we have still achieved a certain level, because the grade conformity of Coal India supplies is still staggering at around 60 to 65% level, which means that 35 to 40% is out of that grade, which is not the kind of thing that should happen to a company of the stature of Coal India. It doesn't befit the stature of Coal India. Having said that, it is also a fact that given the quality of coal and given the method of mining that we adopt, largely open cast, 95%, there is no way but to do washing of coal for getting coal of a particular quality. If you have to conform to quality, you have to wash coal. There is no other way. Whether washing is required, not, who pays for the washing, etc., these are secondary questions. If I have to achieve 95% grade conformity, I must wash my coal. That is very simple, and it is irrespective of distance. Even at pitched, we should be washing our coal. This is the feeling that I have. Taking that concept forward, we organized in 2007. It was January 2007 when we organized a brainstorming session, because the discussion on washing was going on, and the primary focus was who will be at the cost of washing. So this was the problem going on. Fortunately, in 2000, the coal prices became deregulated. So if you are doing something to improve the quality of coal, I think the price can be suitably set. Whether regulator does it or if it is deregulated, Coal India alone can do it, but it can be done. So with that background, we had a brainstorming session, off-site session in near Kolkata, where the then Minister, Dr. Darshan Rao, Mr. H.C. Gupta was the coal secretary at that time, the additional secretary, and all the CMDs, everybody, we participated in that discussion. A very interesting outcome of the discussion was that Coal India should be in a position to declare a date after which no unwashed coal will be supplied to anybody. It should find out what that date is. That date could be 10 years later, could be 5 years later, or whatever. But it must set for itself a target that after a certain date, no unwashed coal will be supplied. That is number one. Number two, Coal India must bear the cost of washing. Washing is a process, just like mining. And whatever cost is incurred to do the washing, that it is completely Coal India's responsibility to bear that. However, if we are offering coal of a higher heat value to power sector must pay commensurately higher price. It is not cost of washing. It is just paying higher price for the higher value addition. That's it. So with that kind of a internal sort of a consensus which was developed, the minutes were prepared. Incidentally, Dr. Darshan Rao was the MOS. He was not the cabinet minister for coal. The cabinet minister was prime minister. So the minutes traveled all the way from the Ministry of Coal to Prime Minister's office and got approved at that level. Once it got approved at that level, all the action points in that particular meeting, in fact, that meeting was not only for washing, it was for setting the strategic roadmap for Coal India for the next 5 years. So that was the purpose. So that got monitored by the principal secretary to the Prime Minister. The monitoring went to the extent that how many washeries, where are the washeries, which is the land, soil testing, tendering, everything was under watch. And for everything, there was a milestone. It was so much blessed by the government of the day that we found it quite okay to present in the red herring prospectus for the IPO that Coal India is going to install 20 washeries with 111 million tons of capacity, and that is going to make a difference in the quality, in totality. All the international investors were very much concerned that coal prices in India are too low. So we said coal prices will remain low because we are supplying unwashed coal. As we move towards washed coal, there could be a quality convergence and there could be a price convergence as well. And this was one of the points which the investors felt made the investors absolutely gung-ho about the IPO. And the outcome was known to everybody. I mean, the price that was decided on the day of listing is at least 30 to 40% more than the current price after 10 years. So why the prices have not really stayed there? To my mind, one reason is we have failed in our commitment for the washeries. That could be one of the major reasons why the Coal India stock has not behaved, or rather behaved contrary to the way the market has behaved. The Sensex was hardly 30,000 at that time, and Coal India price was 340. And today the Sensex is more than 50,000. The Coal India price is less than 200, around 200 or something like that. So this is one reason why the investors possibly have punished the company for not sticking to its commitment of doing coal washing. The major problem that we find today is, as I said earlier in some of the papers, in fact, I've written about it also, that there is a huge problem in pricing. Mr. Jha made a very interesting and important point that if there is no statutory obligation, there has to be economic viability of coal washing. That economic viability will never come in the current pricing structure, because in the landed cost of coal, let us say if the coal travels by 500-600 kilometers, which is the average distance by which a ton of coal moves in this country, out of the end price, at least 50% or more is fixed. It doesn't move with calorific value change. The 400 rupees per ton of GST compensation cess, the huge railway freight that we have to bear, our railway freight is incommensurately high. These things have no relevance to, is invariable with respect to calorific value. The price of coal, unfortunately, varies very mildly with calorific value and in a linear manner. So if you add the three components, the producer's share of price, the transporter's share, and the GST compensation cess all together, the price is reversely moving with increased calorific value, which means lower calorific value is has a higher price and higher calorific value is a lower price. As far as the producer is concerned, the calorific value, the price in rupees per Gcal is flat. At all levels of Gcal, the price is the same. So why should I invest in washeries? What is the impetus or what is the benefit of quality improvement? Okay, it can be. We can always say that well, that is the right thing to do, or that is really important that the producer supplies the right quality, but he should be paid for it. If he is not paid for it, I think Coal India is very happy in the current situation because its lowest grade coal fetches a much higher price than what it should. Its higher grade coal fetch a much lower price than what it should. And therefore, since the production is more in the lower grade side, Coal India is happy. So you have to really look at the root cause of the whole issue. Unless we look at that root cause and make a drastic change in the pricing pattern and make it aligned to international pricing. I'm not saying anything different. Because if you are waiting for a regulator, I think we have to wait for 10 more years. Because if it has not happened in 10 years, it will not happen in the next 10 years also. But even if a regulator comes, I think one benchmark would be how the international prices are related to calorific value. If you look at that, everywhere the relationship is non-linear. It's a non-linear, exponentially moving curve. In rupees per Gcal, it is linearly moving up. International prices. And our prices in rupees per Gcal are flat. In rupees per tonne, it's a modestly moving upward. With this kind of pricing, sir, producer has absolutely no incentive to go for it. And The reason why the producer is happy with the MOEF's withdrawal of that circular is precisely this. If you look at it, I would have been chairman, I would have been also very happy because I understand the financing part of it. So I think there has to be a major change there. We have to bring in this concept. Now, the subject matter of today's discussion is washing in the emerging energy scenario. Now, what is this emerging energy scenario? Does it make a difference to the need for washing as compared to what the scenario was yesterday? I think it does. The main reason there is that we are witnessing a situation, as Mr. Shahi keeps on saying in different forums, that we are today at 30-70. 30 is renewable and 70 is coal-based power. And by 2040 or something like that, it can be reversed at best. So even 30 will remain coal-based power and of a much bigger number. So 30% of that bigger number is likely to be higher than 70% of the smaller number today. So in all probability, we are going to be using about 1,500 or 1.3 to 1.5 billion tons of coal even in 2040. If that is the situation, when the world over situation is different, world over people are moving towards net zero in a big way. And today, the coal prices that has come up and the surge in coal prices that has come up, actually, I have information that the environmentalists are quite happy about it. They don't see it as a serious challenge to the global target of 1.5 degrees centigrade temperature control, because since no investment has happened in coal mines around the world, and there is a huge financing embargo, not much of investment is likely. The whole supply-demand mismatch is being met through price correction. The coal prices are going very high, and they are very happy that this is going to give a boost to renewables to improve faster. Because renewable power is going to become definitely more and more cheaper as compared to coal-based power if coal prices remain at a high level. So they are looking at this as an opportunity, and they are looking at this as a temporary blip, the surge in coal demand. And they feel that it is not going to seriously challenge or seriously derail the commitment towards net zero made by various countries. If that be so, countries are moving toward net zero, and India consuming more coal in 2040. I think the coal mining and the coal usage has to be much more benign as compared to what it is today. And if you have to make it benign, I think there is a compulsion for going in for coal washing in a big way. And that is what the genesis of, I would say, a statutory compliance requirement should be thought of. I completely agree with Mr. Shai's idea that we should request the government or the Ministry of Environment for a relook at the whole issue, looking at the emerging energy scenario, the need for bringing in washing in a big way. So I think I will stop at that. I have made my points. Thank you very much, sir, for giving me this opportunity.
Thank you, Partho. I am aware of the fact that we have been talking of rationalization of prices. So such common sense approach, I don't know, my government is not taking notice of it. It's totally against the intention or objective of improving quality. Thank you. Thank you very much as usual. You have been so clear, so concise. And now I call upon Dr. Shrikant. He's Professor and Dean Energy, Environment and Climate Change, National Institute of Advanced Studies. I have great pleasure in introducing him. He's such a character, such a distinguished character, that everyone would feel privileged to have him as a speaker. But for shortage of time, I'll be very brief about it. He's a graduate from Indian School of Mines. He has done his MSc Mining from Pennsylvania University. He has done PhD also from there. And he has General Management program from France. He has been in mining operation with Tatas. He has been also research assistant with Pennsylvania University. He's divisional manager Tata West Bokaro. He has been chief Tata Steel, and he's currently professor and dean. He has handled 7 research projects. He has contributed 10 articles to international journals. He has a peer-reviewed contribution on 10 reports. He participated in 20 conferences through thought process, through press briefings and writings on several occasions. So, gentlemen, would be hearing Dr. Srikanth. And I'm assuring you, it will be a privilege hearing from him. Thank you, Dr. Srikanth.
Thank you very much, sir, for your kind introduction. So, first of all, I thank India Energy Forum for this invitation, and I really echo basically the words of the previous speakers on the importance of the India Energy Forum in bringing various energy-related matters which are very crucial for the country's development to knowledge of everybody. So I have a small presentation, and I think the way that actually Mr. Partha Bhattacharya and Mr. Jha have already spoken about, so I think it given a fantastic background to what I wanted to speak. So I think, so I hope I'll be able to add something more to what the contributions they already made. So I wanted to basically, because the talk was about the importance of coal washing in the current energy scenario. And I think Mr. Partha Bhattacharya has rightly said, what has really changed that in the current energy scenario that is relevant to coal washing. And I think what has really changed is basically the environmental consciousness and the consciousness about climate. And I think this is something that basically I wanted to bring to the fore now, because one thing is very clear, that if the coal industry, and particularly Coal India, does not actually transform itself to think more strategically about its future, I think the future of the company is doomed. Any other private sector company which has witnessed such a huge loss of share prices, despite a huge increase in production, I think there would have been tremendous chaos in the market in the shareholders. But fortunately, because the government is owning, there is a majority shareholder by far, I think there is no debate on what is actually happening to the share price. And I think I completely agree with Master Partha Bhattacharya. The lack of focus on value addition. I worked in the steel. I started my career in Coal India, as many people here know, and I later joined a steel company mainly because I was more interested in value addition, not only to myself but also to basically the country. If you look in terms of value addition, and particularly if you look at Tata Steel or all the private steel companies, the focus is always on value addition. How do you go up the value chain? How do you stop selling commodities like rebars, which are low-tech, low-value products, and go to hot-rolled coils? How do you go to galvanized steel products? All the time, the focus is on how do you increase value to the customer, to the company, and to the shareholder. Unfortunately, what has happened is, in the coal industry, the concept of value is non-existent. It is just, I have to produce tonnage at any cost. And I would actually say the Ministry of Coal is also to blame, because actually it is a Ministry of Coal India. It is not the Ministry of Coal. So I wanted to basically put some sort of, very, I hope some thought-provoking ideas. And I thank, I hope, and I would be very happy to answer some questions at the end. Now, first, basically, if you look at energy transition, if you look at the media, you would be actually thinking that basically energy transition is happening so fast that everybody is going to switch over to renewable energy, and renewable energy is much bigger than coal. So the whole problem here is, it is a media playing its role of a megaphone. So the media, basically, if you see at the top, that basically you've got renewable, just here, this is hydro, this is wind, this is solar, and this is basically other sources. So the whole question is that you've got right up to here, and this is actually nuclear. So what you are actually seeing is coal is still 30% of the world's electricity generation. And particularly if you look at China, India, and let's forget everybody, let's look at the US. US has got more than 20% of its electricity coming from coal. And despite all the claims of the US government under Joe Biden, that coal production in US has actually increased last year compared to what it was in the previous year. So the whole thing, and despite the fact that they're not put up any coal-based power plant in the last 40 years, their coal production has increased because actually the gas prices are huge, and now they're getting a huge profit by basically exporting LNG to Europe instead of Russia. And so therefore the coal production is going to increase, coal-based generation is going to increase. So there's a lot of hypocrisy around. And I think that hypocrisy is now going to be getting called out by many people, including our respected foreign minister, who was actually called in front of the Secretary of State and Secretary of Defense, who was actually called out the hypocrisy of the Western media on why India is basically buying oil from Russia. So basically, I think this is a very clear thing and we should not have to be defensive. But one thing is for sure, climate change is real. Environmental impacts of coal are real. So now what is the coal industry doing to basically address these issues? And I think one of the most important things that the coal industry should do is coal washing. Whether there is a mandate or not, whether there is any basically buyer or not, because buyer will be there because Coal India is supplying more than 80% of the coal. So what is very important is for the strategic survival of the company and the coal sector itself, I think it is very important, I think what Mr. Partha Bhattacharya mentioned, to go for coal washing. And I think when the environmental impacts and the climate impacts, and I will shortly mention about that, or they are realized, the stock market will also start valuing it. And once the stock market booms and the prices go up, obviously the government is also the gainer because when they do disinvestment, they're going to get more revenues. So now CO2 emissions. Okay, again, the media basically is, yes, we are the third largest emitter in the world. But basically, if you look at it, if you look at historical emissions, India accounts for less than 4% of the world's total historical CO2 emissions. And global warming is not because of the CO2 that we are emitting today. It is because of the cumulative CO2 emissions that have happened. And therefore, basically, it's looking at the Western countries. It is they who have actually contributed the most. And now what has actually happened is they outsourced a lot of the manufacturing to China. So they can say, yes, we are going towards net zero. But basically, if you do the CO2 emission by consumption, then you will actually find that they are not decreased so much. And definitely what's going to happen with the war that is there in Ukraine, you can see Germany is now again going to restart its coal-based power plants. UK is basically restarting its coal-based power plants. So therefore, the whole problem basically is energy security, which was completely ignored when everybody felt that you could import solar panels, you could import batteries, you could import battery raw materials, and then survive as a sovereign country. I think this falsehood has now totally been exposed. And this is something that the India Energy Forum should rightly say, because whatever said and done, we don't have 1 gram of lithium in our borders. We don't have 1 gram of cobalt in our borders, except as a byproduct. So if we want to basically go for large scale batteries, as CEA and basically the battery lobbies want us to do, we are going to be heavily reliant on imported raw materials. So therefore, we will be actually substituting one form of energy dependence on another form of energy dependence. And that's what is going to happen. So now, why is all this important? Unlike Europe and unlike US, we have got one very big challenge that our per capita electricity consumption is only 1/3 of the world average. We have got tremendous energy poverty in India. We need to basically increase our electricity generation because electricity consumption is almost directly proportional to human development. So this is something that we have to say. This is the government, at least the Honorable Prime Minister has been saying it. But I think it is something that basically the India Energy Forum should also say, because this is a unique challenge that we have got, that we have to first and foremost increase the level of living standards of our people. And that requires electricity, whether anybody likes it or not. Yes, our CO2 emissions are going to go up, whether anybody likes it or not. But the question is, if you look in terms of our share of the carbon space that is there in the world, India has occupied a pittance. And therefore, we need to basically claim our share. And I'm glad to say that there are some colleagues, we are all working on this, that how do we basically retain a share of the carbon space? Our development is going to be hampered badly. Now we look at the environment. So therefore, coal is going to continue. And I'm very glad basically that the Honorable Prime Minister has actually rebutted all the claims made by many think tanks in Delhi, I don't want to name them, who were actually clamoring or acting as agents of foreign powers to basically say net zero, close coal mines. They got the UN Secretary General to India to say that basically we should close down our coal mines. I think this sort of propaganda that happened prior to Glasgow was very visible. And then once the Prime Minister made up his mind, and rightly so, that we cannot succumb to that clamor, and therefore he actually has asked for 2070, China has asked for 2060. So basically, he has actually saved the country so that we can actually have some more time to do the transition. And I have been part of a NITI expert committee on the future of coal. And I'm very happy to say that basically that there was tremendous pressure on many people to say, and I think one of the think tanks basically said The opening statement of the report was, coal is the least preferred source of electricity. I laughed at him and said that if the least preferred source of electricity is contributing 70% of the electricity, I would be happy to be in the least preferred. So question is, there is a tremendous lobby against coal. But what is coal industry doing? What coal industry is doing is absolutely sitting tight and doing nothing. So I think there is very great importance for the coal industry, because the future of the coal industry is dependent on the future of the power sector. If coal-based power plants are basically not going to take more coal from India, the future of domestic coal industry is also very bleak, because we are not going to export coal. There is no buyer for our coal. So what we need to do is basically, we need to help the thermal power plants in India to become more environment friendly. And if you look at it, this is just a slide that we have made, and this is something that we have given to Niti Aayog. And I'm very happy to say that this particular slide actually was part of a report which was endorsed by Ministry of Power and sent to MOEF of all people, because they were not aware of it. What is actually happening is, there has been, as many of you know, from 2015 onwards, the flue gas desulfurizers are thought to be the panacea for all ills of pollution, air pollution. And therefore, that has been made a mandate. And I think Mr. Anilja rightly said that if something is made a mandate, then everybody is happy to comply. And power sector especially is very happy to comply. Ministry of Power has given a direction to CERC, whatever happens, whatever be the cost should be passed through. That's it. So that's a formal written direction the MOP has given. And if you look at what is going to happen, that now there are letters from MOP to PMO which say, yes, which is obvious, the FGDs will hike generation tariffs by 30 to 35 paisa per unit. And this is the MOP direction, pass it through. That's it. Now, what will the state regulators do? They have the political pressures to say, because the 30 to 35 paisa generation tariff, by the time it reaches the consumer, it will go to 50 paisa per unit. Now, what's going to happen? Agriculture, no tariff, no free power. So what's going to happen to industries? They're going to have much higher, a disproportionate increase in tariff. What is going to happen to employment? It will go down, because many industries, small-scale industries, cannot afford the increase in input costs. They will close down. So there will be more unemployment. So now, therefore, this is what is the economic impact. But everybody is very happy. NTPC has placed orders for, I think, 25,000-30,000 crores of FGDs, because yes, they are going to get rewarded, because the entire fixed costs are going to be recovered through the tariffs. So this is what has actually happened. A mandate that has come for coals which were designed for coals or high sulfur coals in US, in China, and now that has been passed through to India, whereas our problem is high ash, but we have low sulfur. So this is the problem. And this was the right time for the coal industry to say, no, sir, we don't need FGDs. What we need is coal washing, because the biggest problem from Indian thermal power plants is not SOx emission. It is actually particulate matter. And the best way to tackle PM emission was to use washed coal, because that would improve basically the efficiency of the ESPs. It would improve many aspects of the operation maintenance of the plant, which Mr. Shahi has mentioned. And I'm sure that Mr. Anilja, who has now joined as chairman of JPL, would definitely experience, because there's a coal mine, a washery, and a power plant, which are all linked by an umbilical cord. And that is really the best system to actually happen. So now I wanted to see that what has actually happened. Did anybody oppose these FGDs from the government, within the government? I was very happy to see a presentation made by CEA to the Power Secretary in August 2021. I just want to put this up to show basically how strong a lobby can actually overcome logic in our country. This is a presentation from CEA. It said that to Power Secretary, they say, implementation of FGD system randomly, and this word is very important, randomly, because what has actually happened is, without any sense, without even thinking, where is it that my SOx is a problem? Is it a problem basically in areas like Singrauli, which have got 15,000, 20,000 megawatt of power, or in Talcher or Ib Valley or in Raigad, putting it even in places like Kudgi and Sholapur, which have got absolutely basically zero pollution from sulfur dioxide at the ground level. I think this is basically nonsense that has been done. And that's the way they use the word randomly. They will increase water consumption. We know the impact, 0.5 cubic meter per megawatt hour. Today we are having excess rains, no problem. But in 2015 and 2017-16, when we had a drought, we know all that so many coal-based power plants, Raichur, Bellary, Parli, even Farakka were closed because of lack of water. No problem, FGD is there. Okay, it will generate power on its own. Increase in auxiliary consumption, it has been quantified by NTPC in a tariff petition, 1.5 to 2% increase in auxiliary consumption. This is all I put in quote and unquote. This is directly from the presentation. More coal, more CO2 emission, more limestone, more mining, more transportation, more consumption of electricity or diesel, more coal burning, more dust pollution, more CO2 emission. Increase of transportation of byproduct, then issue of low-grade gypsum disposal, just like ash, and finally increasing cost of electricity. That's more burden on all Indians. This is the presentation made by the Central Electricity Authority to the Power Secretary, which is available on the website. Now, despite, I can't imagine basically anybody saying so strong words, and I really admire the people in CEA who actually made this presentation. Now the question is that what are we doing? Nothing. Now then there has been a recent study in 2020 published in Energy Policy, which is the most reputed journal in energy policy in the world. And actually this is a study by Chinese researchers. They say the reduction in SOx emissions in China due to FGDs will result in an increase in global average temperature by 0.6 degrees centigrade approximately. Why? For two reasons. And the main reason actually is sulfur dioxide emissions, actually they form a coolant aerosol. So therefore, by actually reducing SOx emissions dramatically, what you're going to do is basically increase global warming. Now, the whole question is, after China, we are the second largest coal producer and the coal user. There is no such study in India. So everybody, we want to, there's a clamor for global warming, clamor for shutting down coal-based power plants to reduce CO2 emissions, but we are fitting equipment at great cost to our water system, at great cost to basically all to the Indian consumer, which will also increase global warming. There is no study in India. Now, on the other hand, what should the coal industry do? Coal industry should say coal washing is a pre-combustion process, and therefore it is the most efficient thing. I mean, in Tata Steel, it is very obvious. What we used to do is that we have washed in coking coal, obviously, coal from 35% ash to 17% ash, even 15% ash, with yields ranging from 38 to 40% by using advanced technology. Why it is required? Because it is easier to dispose of the waste when it is cold, rather than increasing the temperature to 600 degrees centigrade and then trying to pollute the environment. So, using washed coal would have brought down the emissions of particulate matter, will bring down. And this is something that has been proven, and the coal industry should actually try to market this coal washing as such. Similarly, what has to happen is, instead of using FGDs, sorbent injection, this has been tried in Dadri, I know, but nobody, see, if you are able to pass through all your inefficiencies and recover cost from the consumer, nobody will do anything to basically change that situation. Unfortunately, in our power sector, where everything is passed through, so what can happen is that people can actually do whatever they want and pass through the cost of the consumer, because IPPs, which are ready to compete in the market, they are not getting actually power purchase agreements. And therefore, there is no competition because there is scarcity. So therefore, the whole question, what I want to say is, proven indigenous cost-effective technologies are what we require to handle our Indian coal in an environment-friendly and climate-friendly manner, rather than costly imported FGDs. And therefore, this is the way that actually the coal industry should market, and particularly Coal India. Let's basically put it, 80% of coal is from Coal India. Whatever commercial miners do, it's all going to be further in the future. So this is what is important. So now, what about the advantages? There is a public document available. This is a study actually submitted by AP Genco to MOEF when they wanted to change the EC to switch over from imported coal to washed coal from Talcher. All the reductions that basically in everything, all the emissions are all very, very clear. So the whole question is, there is technical documentation. People have referred to studies made in Satpura, where I happen to work at the initial start of my career. There have been umpteen studies, but this is a very recent study. So this is all quantified. There is no absence of basically quantified data on the role of coal washing. But the coal industry is basically staying away from the arena, is not jumping in and say that this is the reason that you should use washed coal. Now, policy. Yes, it requires cost. There is no doubt, and I completely agree with Mr. Anil Jha that there is and everybody here that says that there is an increase in cost. But washed coal also adds value to the power plant. And I'm very happy to note that Mr. Shahi started his career as an industrial engineer. And one of the advantages of industrial engineering is you try to basically study every unit operation to see where costs are being added. Now the whole question is, the power plants of today, they who are using washed coal, they want to take all the advantages, but they don't want to pay for any of those advantages. Why? Because the more inefficient they operate, the more they cry about great slippage, they can go on claiming basically excess revenues through the regulator. That is what has actually happened. So the lower cost of transportation, these are all no-brainers. But the problem basically is NTPC as the biggest power generator in the country, I think should start quantifying these things. Now, hopefully Jindal Power Limited or any other power producer, I think I have been asking basically Adani Power, which is basically has taken over the Dahanu plant where Mr. Shahi in a far-sighted move has started using washed coal. These are the things to be quantified. What are the O&M costs of TPPs? What are the benefits they get by basically using washed coal? Now, if you add up, there is already the CEA has accepted 2.5 to 3% increase in boiler efficiency in the thermal power plants. That obviously means that you are going to reduce CO2 emission per basic kilowatt hour of electricity generation. These are concrete benefits. Now, one thing that has now recently happened is sometimes the carrot doesn't work, the stick should work. So now the stick is working now. The NGT has fined several government GENCOs, including NTPC, including Reliance, for actually fly ash generation and actually more importantly, the ash ponds, which are a huge source of pollution in all places. And there have been the ash plants where the dikes have burst. It has happened in Talcher. It has happened in Singrauli. Yes, the media talks about it for a couple of days. Yes, so what? A few people die, people forget about it. Now, these are all happening because people are using raw coal and basically just burning them and trying to dump the ash. And all our ash ponds are now full. There is no place. Now, and last but not the least, what about Indian Railways? Today, in May and June, 1,000 trains were cancelled because Indian Railways did not have the capacity to carry the coal. Now, the whole question basically, is it not a national loss when automobile sector in Haryana has been closed because they could not get power? Load shedding is not a cost to the economy. It is a huge cost. But who cares? Who bothers? Nobody quantifies it. Now we are going to import coal. Now Coal India is trying to import coal. I find it's a shame because there's a mandate. You go and import coal. The prices are now, the tenders are open, but the prices are clear. So rather than spending money in India to wash the coal, reduce the ash, and reduce the burden on Indian Railways, we prefer to basically spend the money on importing coal. That's our national policy now. So what I would say is that this is something that the coal industry, particularly Coal India, should take the lead on. And I think, I don't know how many people from NTPC are here, and I hope Mr. Shahi can pass through this message, that there needs to be a sort of, working together on this. That we should benefit Indians rather than benefiting basically people in Indonesia. We should try to benefit Indians by basically using our coal more efficiently in a more climate-friendly manner. And that, I think, the only way it can happen is by coal washing. Now, this, I just did a study. I think Mr. Partha Bhattacharya talked about the commercial part of the whole thing. So I did this study basically with a, based upon, I think Mr. Anilja did not claim proper credit for it. I think the work that he has actually done to get the EC and the FC over a period of several years for the 10 million ton washeries, I think is commendable. Unfortunately, as he said, I don't think anybody cared for the coal industry when this notification was issued without public hearing because it was thought to be that coal demand will increase during pandemic. The facts are otherwise, and I think Mr. U. Kumar has already pointed out the fallacies of that. Now, if you look at this, I did this study based upon Lakhanpur coal washery. This is published data because the tender conditions, the orders are all available. I loaded basically a 30% premium on the cost of washed coal. So what I found basically is that forget all other boiler efficiency, forget basically cost of ash disposal, forget everything. There is a huge benefit to a supercritical plant by using washed coal. And I'm bringing the word of supercritical plant is, our supercritical power plants are the best thing that we have done in the country. to reduce basically emissions by increasing efficiency. But then if you want to increase efficiencies, I'm really surprised the efficiency increase can happen with better quality raw materials. And to a person who worked in a steel plant like me, it's so obvious. But I don't know why the power sector doesn't feel the need for this. There is no free lunch. But here the benefits are very obvious because of the railway fares itself. But the problem is, since there is no quantification of the benefits, therefore it is being thought, and everything is dependent on Dadri and Pipavav. Unfortunately, basically, we have to get rid of that syndrome of Dadri-Pipavav link. The prices that have come out from the tenders that have been, the orders that have been awarded, show that the coal washing cost is 140 rupees per ton. I've added 60 rupees for the cost of power and water, which are free issue, 200 rupees. Price of washery capital cost, 40 crore per million ton for a very advanced technology washery. The question is, for all the capital that Coal India has got, investment in coal washeries is going to basically increase its value addition to the consumer, to the country, and ultimately to its own shareholders. And Mr. Partha Bhattacharya made a fantastic point about coal pricing. What I've done here is, I just plotted our coal pricing, basic coal price. And you can see why nobody is interested in coal washing. Right up to this point, this increase, the increase in price, ROM price, basic price, per kilocalorie increase in calorific value is less than 30 paisa. At this point, it starts increasing to 1 rupee from this point onwards. So this is where most of our, between 2,400 to 4,800, this is where most of our power coals are, rather around 3,500 or so. So therefore, there is no basically bonus to the coal producer to do washing. And as he rightly said, there is no incentive. This is our stupid coal pricing policy, which does not encourage value addition.
Forgive me, Mr. Shrikant.
Yeah.
I think
I'm done. Yeah. So last, basically what I would say is, we are going to have higher railway bottlenecks because the coal consumption rate is going to increase. It's going to outmatch the railway freight capacity addition. Therefore, we are going to have more load shedding. We're going to have more imported coal. These costs have to be accounted for at the national level. The railway freight is going to increase further. And basically data shows the CAGR or railway freight increase is much higher than the inflation rate. The cost and the pollution risk of land for ash disposal will increase as existing ash dams are exhausted. Therefore, using washed coal is the most optimal route for low sulfur Indian coal. And therefore, what I would say is the rejects problem has been peripherally addressed. And one thing I firmly believe, unless the rejects are used in a pithead FBC boiler like what Tata Steel is doing, what Jindals are doing, I think they should not be sold. They should simply be washed to below 1500 kcal and dumped in the mine. This is the international practice, and that is what should be done. Because the moment you start allowing sale of rejects, the tail will start wagging the dog. And that is what has happened in India. And I'm very happy to say, I want to end with this slide. This is the Lakhanpur coal washery, which Mr. Anilja started off. Foundation stone was laid by Mr. Anil Swarup. It got delayed during COVID. 10 million ton washery, most modern coal washery in India, with a washing cost of only 200 rupees per ton, including power and water. Zero discharge washery. This is coming up. Unfortunately, 3 other washeries that were to come have been cancelled because of the MOU notification. And I surely hope that we'll see more such washeries in future. Thank you.
Simply brilliant. Yes, brilliant, Dr. Shrikant. It has been such a privilege.
Thank you, sir.
And most welcome thing is that you have pointed out many misrepresentations which are prevailing even at the highest levels in the government. I hope your efforts will bring fruit in this matter, and the practice of misrepresentations will stop. Now we have Ms. Lydia Pavel, which is such a well-known face. She's a distinguished fellow of Observer Research Foundation, and she has been very sort of supportive of every matter about coal, and will be getting this opportunity of hearing her. So, Dr. Lydia Pavel.
For inviting me to speak at this event where many experts are gathered. I don't have any field experience, but working in a think tank, I did a detailed study on coal washing for the Australian funding agency. I have called most of the points I'm about to make have already been made, but I'll just quickly go through them. I have called my presentation Sticks But No Carrots because the policy on coal washing is all about mandates and no incentives for doing so, as pointed out by Dr. Srikanth. So I'm going to focus on the regulatory framework for coal washing in India. First, the key point is why coal. Many of the speakers spoke about it. It has become the key fallback fuel for energy security and energy affordability in the current context. Mr. Gautam spoke about it. Why wash coal? That has also been covered, economic and environmental benefits. Policy review, I would say that we need more carrots and less sticks because if you look at the renewable energy sector, it is almost all carrots and no stick. They have all the policies that favor renewable energy production and transmission. What we would recommend is a technology and fuel agnostic policies. That is, policies that do not pick on any particular fuel or technology like renewables, but it is neutral to technology and fuel and reward carbon emission reduction wherever it comes from. And national and global environmental gains must be rewarded with plant-level economic benefits. I think this point was also made by all the previous speakers. This is a slide that captures the price of most of the fuels in the international market in 2020-21. The blue bar is 2020 versus 2021. The orange bar is 2021 versus the first half or the first quarter of 2022. You can see one of the reasons for the rise of coal internationally and to some extent in India is the increase in price of gas, especially in the period 2020 to 2021. It is in percentage, so it is increased by more than 422%. And even countries in Europe which were very much against coal have started using coal. You can also see the price of lithium in the international market, which has increased over 450%. And all this has revived the use of coal in India, in China, and also in Europe and North America. Fossil fuels, as pointed out by Dr. Srikanth, fossil fuels still account for 82% of primary energy consumption, very small fall from 2016, where it was 85%. Coal consumption growth in 2021 was actually 6%. It is higher than that of oil or gas. This is despite the fact that Asian market price was very high, $145 per ton, and EU price was $121 per ton. China and India accounted for almost 70% of the growth. And that growth increase in coal consumption amounted to about 6.4 exajoules of energy. Global renewable energy growth was about 15%, much higher than that of coal, but the contribution was only 5.1. So the growth in coal consumption in India and China alone can offset renewable energy growth. In the current context, geopolitical tension and the increase in commodity and energy prices have returned the issue of security and affordability of energy supply as important as decarbonization of energy supply. So I would make the same point as what was made by the previous speakers, that is clean domestic coal will give energy security, affordability, and also lead to decarbonization. I think I'll skip these slides because most of you know this. Indian coal has scores poorly on almost all parameters except probably sulfur, as you can see. And one point that is often made is that it is of drift origin. Ash is intrinsic to coal and difficult to wash. Now, why wash coal? This has also been covered, but just some facts. In 1950, the average energy content was about 5,900 kilocalories per kg. In the 2000s, it's about 3,500. high energy coal production, that is for coal of energy content 4,200 kilocalories per kg, is stagnant, whereas low energy coal production has more than doubled in India. So India, in terms of volume, India is the second or third largest coal producer, but in energy terms, it is the fifth largest. So to derive the same energy content as 1 ton of Australian coal, India has to mine 1.5 tons of Indian coal. I think this I will skip, except to point, this is the benefits of coal washing. It's contained in our report. It's available online, you can read through. The only thing I'd like to point out is the biggest reduction in carbon dioxide comes from transport of high ash coal, as pointed out by Dr. Srikanth. And the carbon reduction during combustion is very small, 2 to 3%. Costs of coal washing, that issue has also been covered extensively by the previous speakers, but I'll just, since we interviewed coal washeries extensively, I'll just highlight some of the points that were recorded in our report. Though the report is about 5-6 years old, the issues are still relevant. One is the first order challenges is high transaction costs of involving a third party, that of a washery outside the system of existing linkages between coal production and consumption. In the past, washeries by the coal producer or consumer were mainly for captive use. The open policy of allowing private sector for setting up washeries has not been as successful as one would have hoped. Then the other second order challenge is mismatch between a type of coal and specific design requirement for the boiler, contribution to energy security and carbon reduction is not quantified very clearly. Benefits not sufficient to repay costs of washing, and policy directive prioritized environmental issues over economic viability. All the issues were pointed out by the previous speakers. And the loss of heat value and rejects, that was also covered by the previous speaker. Now, regulatory framework is also covered extensively, so I won't go through, but just one thing that was not mentioned is the 10th plan document also talks about coal washing. It states that quality of coal in India makes it uneconomical to wash, and setting up of washeries was open to the private sector. There were no takers. 11th plan says that use of washed coal will improve efficiency by 1%. But again, it cautions that once you start washing coal, more coal has to be mined, an issue brought up by the previous speaker. These issues have been covered, the MO, Ministry of Environment and Forest directives. But all this is also, the issue of coal washing is also in India's commitment to climate change. It is covered in India's goals, one of goals. And the one issue is all new coal plants have been mandated to use supercritical technology, and 144 existing plants have been assigned mandatory efficiency targets. So this makes washing coal necessary. This is an issue that was pointed out by Dr. Srikanth. You can see this is India's coal imports by value and volume from 2002 to 2021. You can see that around late 2000s, the volume and value of import of thermal coal increases dramatically, and it remains much above the value of coking coal. As explained by Dr. Srikanth, this is mainly because of the disincentive in washing coal. And all this can be avoided. The amount of financial resources that can be saved by reducing this import, by increasing the quality of domestic coal, is tremendous. I would say that policy must focus on more carrots and less stick. Current environment is command and control environmental approach has led to import of non-coking coal. Future, I would say that promote domestic production of clean coal, and it should be technology and fuel neutral. Coal shouldn't be singled out for negative policies. if washed coal is able to reduce carbon reduction, it should be rewarded the same way renewable energy is rewarded for reducing carbon emissions. You would have seen a new report by Niti Aayog. It says that coal washing can save about 75 to 100 million tons of carbon emissions per year. And this requires, I would say, financial incentive. I would also say that policy should be more flexible and not fixed. One size fits all approach may not work. Utilization of Clean Environment Fund, now called the GST Compensation Fund, I think effort must be made to return this fund back to the coal industry and to spend it on coal washing. Niti Aayog's latest report on coal washings quantifies environmental benefit of washing to be about 1 pice to 2 pice per kilowatt hour, but they make a very conservative estimate of the price of carbon, that is just $2.5 per ton of carbon price, and they arrive at this very low figure of 1 to 2 pice per kilowatt hour environmental benefit. But the current carbon price in the EU ETS market is about $80. So the environmental benefit of washing coal could be much higher. And this benefit, I would think that should be passed on to the power generators or the washeries. I think I will stop here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Pavel. As usual, you have been very concise and you have had your say. But now, I request Mr. Shahi to take over, organize the questions and answers, and then his address, concluding remarks. Mr. Shahi, please.
Thank you, Kumarji. I think you handled this technical session very well. A lot of ideas have come. Very comprehensive presentations, much more than what I thought we will be able to cover. I think we are a little bit late, but not too late on our schedule. We will invite only 2-3 questions, and then we will try to sum up. Any question?
Yeah. I was just wondering, has any comprehensive study done on advantages of coal washing taken into account the logistic, heat rate, and the supercritical benefit? Because these are the things which will really justify the washing of coal. Now, I remember that earlier when this washeries proposals were made, I was in planning commission, and it was observed that 10 to 15% of useful heat value of coal is washed away. So that was that perhaps would have been the reason why the 100% capacity utilization is not there. Now, I agree totally with Mr. Bhattacharya's statement that India has a very bad policy on coal pricing, and that's largely to protect the power sector. Now, today, the Indonesian coal prices are at, for a heat value of 38,000, 3,800 kcal per kg is about $120 per ton. It used to be about $40 per ton, but Indian coal is with a calorific value of about 3,300 or 3,400 kcal per kg is paid only $20 per ton. Now, this has made India one of the largest importer of coal because we don't mine the underground coal because of the pricing issues. Now that's one of the major reasons. I mean, why we should really make our coal prices at import parity, like what we have made for oil, but there are problems for oil and gas also. On the FGD issue, I mean, I really wonder why.
FGD you can leave for the present. Let us leave FGD.
Because our coal has got only 0.6% sulfur content. The imported coal has got 1.5 to 2% sulfur content, and that's the coal which is required, FGD, and not the Indian coal. Thank you.
Sir, may I make a point?
Mr. Verma.
I would like to comment only on one thing. Every time Parthaji makes good points, but finally he comes to globalization of the prices of the coal. Now, as far as the power sector is concerned, it is totally regulated and there is no justification for any globalized price of coal input as the price of unregulated price input to the regulated sector. The need is a coal regulator. He will fix the price that should go into the the power sector at least. The globalization, when you export coal, you talk of the international prices and the parity, etc., but not in the Indian supplies. This is what.
As per the mandate, the Coal India Limited has a freedom to fix its prices. Is the government?
Yeah.
And second thing is, sir, everybody talks of the incentive to the coal company if they mine, if they wash coal, etc. There is no need of an incentive for a government organization. They have to be given directive and they must abide by quality of coal. And this talk of incentive, etc., is immaterial here.
Any other comment? Anyone else?
I have one suggestion that when we wash the coal, then we go for 50 millimeter size, then your CHP in the power plant comes to such a low structure, there's big saving to the power sector also. So our cost of generation come down. So this point also need to be looked into.
Yes, correct.
Yes.
Any other point? Anybody else?
Sir, the issue of that circular of the Ministry of Coal, Ministry of Environment arose from Dadri case. Dadri gets deemed to be a washed coal, but the coal which they get is not of the quality of the washed coal, and therefore NTPC objected to the price of this coal. In the name of the washed coal, they get unwashed coal, and therefore that circular was there. That was the basis.
All right. So I think there is no other comment, and the only point that Dr. Sharma made in the beginning that. Is there any study about the economics of coal washing? I think when we did in 2009-10, I mentioned to you when Partha was there, Mr. Sachdeva, late Mr. Sachdeva.
There was a study, yes.
I was there, we chaired that committee, and that submitted the report to the Ministry of Environment, which led to that famous notification of making it obligatory on the part of supplier as well as consumer, and reducing the distance from 1,000 kilometers to 500 kilometers. We did work out, and it was found that with 500 kilometers of distance, the transportation cost saving, and also the saving in the efficiency of operations, etc., it is more than justified, and that is how we suggested that the distance should be changed from 1,000 kilometers to 500 kilometers, and they make this obligatory. I think good discussion today. Partha, I think this time I have seen many of the coal experts, not many, all of them. They have said that there is justification for washing. That means washed coal means quality coal, should be done. The only problem is the first chicken or first egg. The point was made, the price. The price, if it has to be done, it is a cost. It's a cost. As far as I know, the legal position today is that coal pricing is with the Coal India itself. And therefore, it is a matter between Coal India and government to decide the price, unlike in power sector where we have regulators. So the question is, if we take our responsibility to supply quality coal, I will supply only quality coal. Like a very important point was made by Partha. I did not know, in fact, that as high as Prime Minister level, that minutes were made and the circular was issued, that Coal India will supply only washed coal, as back as 2007. And the pricing is with Coal India, and Coal India settles it between Coal India and Ministry. And therefore, from grade to the GCV, etc., has come. Because, you see, now is not the time that we should take side. Power people taking power side, coal people taking coal side. We should have maturity, because we are in bad shape. I entirely agree and endorse what Partha Bhattacharya said. He attributes not a gainful enhancement, improvement in the share value of Coal India. In spite of the fact that Coal India is a monopoly, it is making huge profit. In spite of that, its shares have not kept pace with the general increase in the share market. And he attributes this, that this is a non-fulfillment of commitment, which at the time of putting it in the share market that was made in terms of washing, quality, etc., etc. Obviously, the whole world is watching. Coal itself is in dock. And we are saying, no, in India, coal is very important. I am saying it is very important. I've taken a very strong position after calculations that we cannot wish away coal even in 2050-60. And therefore, to continue to do the way we have been doing the business in coal is absolutely unacceptable. All of us should agree on that. And then rest of the thing will follow. I mean, it will be naive. It will be totally naive to assume that coal is washed, its costs, and then Coal India will not be paid. It will be naive to assume. The moment you start saying that people who have power stations 500 kilometers and more shall be supplied only washed coal, you have a time frame. And I agree with Mr. Kumar that time frame cannot be unreasonable. But I also answered him that doesn't matter. In the circular, if it was a time frame, it was unreasonable, no problem. You can do it 2 years later, but do it. And it would not be paid, it is impossible. You see, overnight, coal cess was introduced. The same power sector is paying, same coal consumers are paying. And that is of the order of 400 to 500 rupees a ton. So therefore, if that was the basis and apprehension that we will not be paid and therefore we did not pursue this matter, I don't think that can be a very acceptable argument. So I think let's have a matured paper on this, and I will definitely suggest it should be written by, let's say, we have worked together, but Partha, myself, and our late great friend, we worked together and gave that draft circular to the Environment Ministry, and which became a landmark circular. We should try to rework the whole thing and make a suggestion, and we will go to NITI Aayog, we will go to Ministry of Environment, Ministry of Coal, and Ministry of Power. If not for anything else, let us remove this scar in the coal industry of India that we are supplying such useless coal. Rest of the things will follow. We are supplying really useless coal. Even now when I visit power station, it is useless. Good quantity, almost 10, 15, 20%, stone, iron pieces. This is what we are supplying. So let us get over this. I am true believer. I tell you, I spent money. Kumar was with me. We spent money to invest and did a coal washery. And we got the benefit of that coal washery. Everybody will get. We will convince our people. But let's start from there. I give you an example. When we were to introduce energy efficiency, air conditioners, refrigerators in the country, even bulbs, tubes, we didn't ask the consumer. We asked the suppliers to stop nonsense. 5-star rating, 4-star rating, 3-star rating will be extinct. Will be extinct in 3 years' time or 4 years' time. An entire manufacturing industry was made to accept and prepare. We gave a time. That 3-star will be in 4 or 5 years will be out. 4 and 5-star will be there. We didn't ask the consumers to find out that whether you will pay or you will not pay. So therefore, let's start from there, and we will pressurize this so-called commercial coal mining private operators also, and also the people who are doing your own sort of what you call engage them as contractors on a long-term basis, and they do your coal mining. But let us, in a determined manner, prepare this note. I will earnestly request Mr. Partha, if he is still there, please draft yourself. I will also assist you. We will work together from India Energy Forum in a combined manner, not taking the side of power or taking the side. I have told you that so far as I am concerned, when this circular was being withdrawn 1 week before, I was told, and I checked both with coal and power people, I saw there is no keenness on either side. Both were happy. So I tell you, this culture in the power sector and coal sector is continuing. The coal people will continue to do this, and power people will continue to blame them for their failures. So one is helping the other. Why you did not perform? Because coal problem was there. So this helps the coal people, coal power station people also that, okay, we will put the blame on the coal people. So I think both of them have joined the hands together and ensured that this problem itself is eliminated. So it works for both. We are neither in there or there. At least we people, we have all left our jobs. Let us do the service to the nation and see the game plan of coal people and power people. Let us leave NTPC out because NTPC is not interested because most of their power stations are below 500 kilometers. So they are not covered by the circular, except 2-3 power stations. Let's leave them. I think let us work together. This group should work together in a professional manner within a time frame of a month or so. Let's move this, and we will move every authority to see that may not be the same circular, maybe a modified circular. It is worked out. But more than that, we should prepare our both industry, coal industry as well as power industry, that circular is one thing. Let us take a responsible, behavior of being a good supplier and behavior of being a good consumer. And that is the way you should enforce. So I think with that, I thank you very much. We didn't have many questions. With Dr. Sharma's question, I just have answered. And also, and I will say that the issue of pricing will get resolved. We will, in the same thing, we will also say that since there is an apprehension that they will not be compensated, let us put an independent regulator who will do the job. And power sector is used to bear all this burden, I'm telling you. The very fact that almost 450 rupees a ton cess is being done, and everything, change in law, change in this, change in that, the regulatory commission keeps doing, and the whole thing is passed on finally to the consumers. So I think I have no doubt in our mind that coal industry will be fully compensated. They should have a mind and heart to do it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Mr. Grover will vote of thanks.
I did the valuation of Coal India Limited for its IPO.
That is over now. You can share later on. Let's have a vote of thanks.
Besides, with your permission, we'll ask Mr. Grover to.
I think we request Mr. Grover to say the Grover to give the vote of thanks.
Yes. Today my job is much more difficult because the way things are deliberated, I can't put all things together because things went on so very well in such a deep manner. I don't know where to start and where to end. I'd only say one thing, that the way Mr. Gautam and Yukumar said the things in motion, I'll just add that any supplier like crude, we couldn't use crude as a refinery, re-refining. No, Euro Standard 4, Euro 5. The supplier is fixing everything. So today this should be that Coal India has to take a call to supply vast coal of this quality. That is sum up we can conclude today. And Mr. Shai very well said that let's form a group so that we can thrust upon the real logic where the country is going to gain. And some wrong decision, wrong presentation given by FGD and all those, instead of washing coal and reducing CO2 emission, these are focus which need to be looked into. I can't say, especially because I'll only thank to all of you to sum up that today's deliberation have went on very, very well, and we need to move further. And Indian Energy Forum has to do a job of giving a proper recommendation coal. That is important. That is the gist of today's deliberation. I thank you all for that.